Poetic, Coilen Hewis prose is image-rich. Photo, Daniel Mihailovich Orchid and the Wasp. It's fittingly ironic that the first chapter of Coilen Hewis' extraordinary debut novel is entitled The Mediocrity Principle. From when she is first introduced as an 11-year-old, the protagonist of Orchid the Wasp sticks two fingers up to mediocrity, and from the opening sentence Hewis' prose does the same. Preternaturally intelligent and scarily determined, Gail Foas has adult responsibilities thrust upon her as a child. Her mother is an internationally famous conductor. Her father, a brilliantly awful character, is a financier. They're both obsessed with success and their respective careers. They're rarely in their Dublin home, and when they are present, they engage in some fairly toxic parenting. Savvy and opportunistic though she is, Gail has an Achilles heel: her brother Guthrie. In temperament, Guthrie is Gail's extreme opposite: sensitive, anxious and deeply moral, barely able for the world. An artist and a martyr, he is Gail's purest love and in many ways the heart of the book. Orchid the Wasp spans 9 years, 2002 to 2011, and several locations in Dublin, London and New York, as well as the first-class cabin of a transatlantic flight. Its episodic structure is as unusual as its protagonist. Each section covers a day in Gail's life. The wealth and flimsy unity of Gail's family diminishes with the economic crash and her parents' separation. She moves to London. Her mother loses her job and Guthrie becomes a single parent to twins, dropping out of school before the leaving cert. Motivated by a desire to make her brother financially secure, Gail, an instinctive entrepreneur and con artist, embarks on a series of misadventures. She flees London and an incipient romance with her flatmate, Harper, and takes some of Guthrie's paintings to New York without his permission. There, in some of its funniest and most vivid scenes, the novel moves between the Plaza Hotel, the Occupy movement, a holding cell in a police station, and a spectacularly pretentious Chelsea art gallery. Originally from Galway, Coilen Hewis is an award-winning poet, and her background in poetry shines through Orchid the Wasp's audacious and meticulously crafted prose. It's a mesmeric, immersive, often hilarious reading experience, driven by the force of the imagery-rich writing and the cast of distinctive characters. The structural choices to have drawbacks. Events that would have been more satisfying to read about in a scene, Gail volunteering at the Occupy Library for example, are mentioned in passing or filled in retrospectively. Some jumps work better than others. Gail's mother's new partner, significantly called Art, is already a fixture when Hes first introduced, which feels quite odd. Art is the least indelible of the novel's characters, though a story he tells about an art scam foreshadows Gail's own plan. Hewis' linguistic daring doesn't always pay off. Occasionally a more convoluted analogy temporarily disrupts the story's flow. The cashier looked at her passport the way a midlife crisis-stricken woman looks at a pregnancy test shelved beside menopausal bone density supplements in a pharmacy. But Gail is a fresh and fascinating picaresque heroine, admirable, reprehensible, empowered, bilingual, containing multitudes, the kind of woman rarely depicted in fiction. She may not be likable, but she is so idiosyncratic, so outrageous and so completely herself that it's impossible not to want her to succeed, no matter how Machiavellian her outlook. Ferocious and ferociously witty, she strives to be more amoral than she is to be, at least for a chunk of her early adulthood, more like her father. She's in conflict with herself, and while that conflict impacts on her relationships, it doesn't stymie her in the world. With Harper, who knows that no one will ever make of Gail territory, Hewis allows for hints of tenderness, but only just. After Gail and Harper have, the language breaks up into shape poetry, followed by 3 lines that perfectly encapsulate Gail's ambivalence. She pushes her away, lovingly forces her away. Like Gail's more profound emotions, Harper is in the background rather than the foreground. Guthrie and Gail's mother are more central to the key themes. Asking complicated questions about meritocracy, Hewis explores the relationship between art and capitalism, art and ownership, art and authenticity, art and the gatekeepers of art. In New York, playing the gatekeepers at their own game, swerving between havens of privilege and the grassroots movement, exposing and challenging that privilege, Gail seems less incongruous than she does in Dublin or London. Her high-wire act is exhilarating to witness, as, throughout the novel, is Hewis' own. Indo Review.